Welcome back to the Zarlengo Foundation Unlocking Learning Disabilities Podcast. We are joined again by Brandon Slade from Untapped Learning. So today I want to talk about kind of the family problem or family issue or family dynamic that comes with a learning disability. Yeah. So the child has a learning disability, but it involves everyone, siblings, parents, grandparents, everybody. So let's kind of talk about, you thought you have everything set up when you go back to school. They think this is going to go great. And you get to, October and all the wheels are off and you're just like, everyone's hair's on fire. People are yelling at each other and it's just not working. So what can we do at that point besides panic?
Before we even jump into all that, I'm not the best person to give parenting advice because I'm doing this and it's hard, right? But that being said, I always tell parents to start whatever you're doing to take care of yourself, do it more. Make sure, because we always just want to focus all of our energy on our child and we neglect ourselves and then it tends to get worse.
Sure.
So self-care and empathy. It's really hard to raise a child who doesn't fit into the typical school system. You see people posting on social media about how their kid's getting into X, Y, and Z school and they got valedictorian and the straight A's and nobody really talks about this other side of it. The most amazing parents I've ever seen sometimes have the most challenging kids. You have to work very hard and you have to have a lot of empathy with yourself. So I always start there, self-care and empathy. Okay. Your world's on fire. Depending on the age of the child and depending what the school looks like, the first thing we do when everything's on fire is I recommend as much structure as possible outside the home.
Okay.
So an easy example is office hours. If we go to office hours, we know our students with ADHD in office hours, that 30 minutes spent with their teacher, a lot of times will save us an hour and a half to 2 hours on the back end. By the time we initiate the task, which we struggle with, figure out what to study, maintain attention, and all these other things, it's got a ton of bang for our buck on the back end.
Sure.
So office hours, or if you have a 504 or you can do a study skills class or something like that, that's a great start. Try to get some structure outside of the home because we don't want to ruin the relationship here.
Let's talk about, for just a minute, let's talk about siblings. So you may have one or two siblings that is just crushing school. We're just killing it. Then you have a kid who has ADHD or executive functioning, dyslexia, or all three or whatever. And they're struggling. But they might be the best soccer kid in the whole house, right? Or whatever.
Usually that's the case, right? Yeah.
So, but let's talk about parenting. How as a parent do you say, okay, this isn't fair, but I'm going to spend an hour with Johnny on his homework and I'm only going to check in with you, Susie, on your homework. Like how as a parent do you kind of explain that this isn't fair, but it is just what everybody needs for their particular school setting? Is that,
I think you did a great job right there. It's the whole fair is an equal conversation. Yeah. First of all, just a quick side note. I always struggle working with parents of only children.
Yeah.
Because they think they did something wrong. They're like, I had a Diet Coke when I was pregnant. My kid has ADHD. And people with like 2, 3, 4 kids are like, they are who they are.
Yeah.
Right? Like they were raised the same. They are who they are. But no, I think it is that conversation that fair isn't equal. We all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, and there's just clear expectations. The biggest thing too is making sure that we build in some positive for the kid that we do need to spend an hour of homework with or something like that. Because it's so easy for us to get negative. Going back to that 10,000 negative comments, we're not built for school. You and I are not built for school, but we do a lot of other things well.
Right. Okay.
So we're not built in for school. So building in that positivity.
Okay.
Quick side note on that as well. Growing up with ADHD and my brothers as well, like we used to tell our friends on June 1st, I'll see y'all on July 1st. Have a great month. Mm-hmm. Report cards would come in the mail. Mm-hmm. My parents would see the grade once. We'd be grounded for a month. We'd pay the piper once. Now with everything being online, electronically, it's a constant minute-to-minute battle with our kids throughout the entire school year. It's a completely new parenting dynamic that I don't think people realize.
Well, and it's hard for parents because if Susie got all A's and Johnny's, pulling in some C's, but they were well-earned C's, right? This took us a lot to get to the C. You want to tell Susie, good job. You don't want to diminish what she did, but you also want to praise, so it's kind of a weird dynamic. So do we praise grades or do we kind of just okay, that was great. What would you, where do you land on that?
All the research says, and not only for the straight A kid, but also for the C- kid, is praise the process. Praise the process. The outcome takes care of itself. Because if we do praise the grades, and you and I see this all the time, when that straight A kid's 25, 30, and things start to go wrong, and we've only been praised for the outcome, there's just as big of a crisis. It just happens later in life.
Sure.
So it's praising the process over and over. I love how you had this routine. I love how you worked hard here. I love how you talked to this professor. I love how you went to office hours and worked your tail off for this C-. I could not be more proud of you. Process, process, process.
And then also though, holding accountability, right? Or holding accountable for
100%.
If you didn't go to office hours and you didn't do the things that we had lined out at the beginning of the school year and you ended up with the C- or the D or whatever, okay, well, there's some accountability here. You needed to do more. Your brain is wired different, but that doesn't get you out of being accountable for what you need to do, correct?
Absolutely. And we see kindness, people's kindness sometimes go awry in a lot of ways.
Sure.
What you said about outlining at the beginning of the school year is spot on. When the expectations are clear, then we hold people accountable. Accountability is very important here, and not in a negative, mean way. It's just like, if you take care of this, this positive thing happens. And if you don't, this happens. To give a quick example, I know a lot of the kids that we work with including myself, like a college professor is trying to be so kind. They're like, okay, this paper's due on Friday. And if you have extra time, get it in whenever. So whenever for me is never.
Nightmare.
Never, right? Like it's never. What sounds almost rude and harsh is actually very comforting if you have an executive function challenge. It's like, if this paper's due Friday and you have extra time, it's due Tuesday by midnight.
Yeah.
Like, it's clear, it's black and white. We don't do well with gray.
Yeah.
It's black and white, and we know what's expected of us, and the accommodation is being fulfilled. So a lot of clarity, clear structures, clear routines, which is best practice for all kids, but essential for kids with learning challenges.
It's kind of like what we talked about a couple times ago, is that even though it seems like this wouldn't be a good idea, it seems counterintuitive, more structure so that then they can have the freedom to be creative and do the things they want to do. But we have to lay down the structure and the accountability of getting things done. You can't say, well, I have ADHD, so I didn't really ever get to my homework. That's not an okay thing, and we need to address that with the kid.
Absolutely. And we do everything through the Jocko Willink Navy SEAL mindset, discipline equals freedom. I never thought this would have landed with a lot of our kids, because we have a lot of kids who are, not anyway athletes or Navy SEALs or anything like that. But we all want freedom. And the only path to that is through that discipline piece. So that 30 minutes of office hours gives you that hour and a half to 2 hours of freedom. I know with our college kids, there's a very different feeling going out Friday night with friends when that nagging voice isn't in the back of your head, like, get the paper done, get the paper done. So we can implement a lot of disciplines in our life. Mine is like laying my clothes out before bed. And that gives me the freedom of starting my day in a positive way. People say, doesn't that make your life boring? Not in the least. It actually opens up a lot of mental clarity for me, where I can do cool, creative things in my life and not worry about where my car keys are.
Sure. The little stuff. And the little stuff, like you said earlier, will make you go nuts. I can't find my keys. I had to be there in 10 minutes. I can't find my key, and then it just builds. Okay.
And this is a long process. Like we speak about this, like we had it all together at 15.
Sure.
I was train wrecked till I was like 25, 30, right? And so understanding 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and praising the process and loving your child for who they are and their gifts. And, we speak about this all the time. These are the kids that have the potential to change the world only if they discipline their gift.
Yes. Yes. So for parents, we say, okay, you started this executive functioning thing in 6th grade, right? You figured out, okay, this might be the problem.
Yeah.
Don't expect this to be on track and perfectly rolling in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. There are going to have to make some adjustments. As the kids get older, different things have to change. So you kind of have to reevaluate with your kid. And like you're saying, the kid needs to reevaluate. This worked for me in 6th grade. This is not working for me in 8th grade. And it's a constant changing it to fit where we are in our lives at those times.
I ask myself this question all the time. Quick side note, and this may be helpful for some people, is when everything's on fire, I look for what is the lead domino. I was just having this conversation with myself like last week, because I was like, oh my gosh, there's all these things. So an example of a lead domino is exercise or sleep. So if you exercise, okay, you don't feel like eating terrible, my attention improves, my sleep is better. Like, you do one thing and all these things become easier. So if everything's on fire, if you look for that one thing we can do, it's not going to fix everything in life, but it's going to fix a couple other things. That's what we're looking for here.
Right.
Another easy example is teaching students how to respectfully advocate to teachers. That fixes a lot of these issues.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we just don't know how. So I'm always looking for the lead domino as well when things are on fire.
And I think your key there too is respectfully talking to your teachers. So it's not the teacher's fault you didn't get the paper done. The teacher didn't do anything wrong. They told you about this 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So you respectfully need to go in and say, I need help on this, or I need this or that or the other.
Absolutely. And if we're respectfully advocating several times and things aren't happening, that's when as parents, we can take the next step.
Yes.
Right? But we have to learn how to respectfully advocate. And again, even if it doesn't work, we're teaching our students such a valuable life skill.
Yeah.
How to get that first job interview when a spouse is being a pain in the tail, to be like super respectful about it and clearly advocate your needs, because we're playing the long game here.
Yeah.
It's not just about the 3 missing math assignments.
Sure. And some of the things we do learn in 6th grade we'll still use at 25 and 30 and 40. It's learning things that build kind of on your way up. Talk to me for a minute about sleep. So the importance of sleep, especially for kids with ADHD, and why is that important?
Sleep is everything right now in the research. Mm-hmm. We used to think like wellness, like it started with like exercise and diet. Like sleep is it right now. I'm a terrible person to give sleep advice because I struggle so much, and this is not uncommon with people with ADHD. Yeah. A lot of our clocks are different, and we really struggle with sleep. But one of the best things we can do, especially if we have a teenager, we know this with infants, but with teenagers, helping them develop some type of bedtime routine. The reason I struggle with sleep is because my brain is constantly moving so quickly and I can't turn it off. Mm-hmm. But there is a way to turn it off. It takes time. It's like, I've seen it where bath, reading, sleep. We start the bedtime routine 45 minutes in advance, even with a teenager.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for a teenager, it may be different, right? For a teenager, it may be wash your face, do a, like crossword puzzle, or do something that's not screen related.
Correct.
Anything that's not screen related or whatever.
Yeah,
and then, it could be whatever it is, just making sure you do the same thing each night, right?
Yes, we're training the brain, and it doesn't happen the first day, but we're training the brain to turn off and to slow down. Again, it's not easy, but sleep routines are so important for our teenagers, and they're going to fight it like crazy.
Yeah.
They are going to fight it like crazy. I still fight it. I'm like, well, I have to answer this email.
Yeah.
And I make these things up that just aren't true.
Right.
And it's so important for every aspect of mental health, of learning. And again, I always come at it through like, I'm trying to get you through your homework faster. Like we're trying to make your learning more efficient here. Yeah. It's so important. There's actually a lot coming out where doctors can't tell if the kid has ADHD or they're just sleep deprived, which is wild to think about because they have very similar qualities.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I think we need to think about, especially for college kids, is you kind of have to look at what time of day am I better? Am I better in the morning or am I better in the afternoon? And if I'm better in the afternoon, then maybe I do stay up until 11 o'clock, but then I'm not setting my classes at 7 in the morning, right? I'm not going to set the 8 o'clock class. So knowing, again, back to knowing yourself, which time do I do better? And then plan your day, especially in college when you have kind of that freedom, right? Is that what?
Self-assessment wins every time, especially if you're neurodiverse. Mm-hmm. Getting to that self-assessment is so hard.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about like asking questions, but yeah, if you understand that your brain works differently, but you understand how it works in some capacity, how you acquire information, no matter what you're doing, you will be okay.
So Brandon, I want to thank you again for, talking about all this stuff with us over a couple of times. And so if somebody wants to learn more about Untapped Learning and what you guys do, where do they go?
Just untappedlearning.com is the best way to find us. There's resources on there, and let us know if we can help.
And you're servicing kids that are primarily junior high, college, or what age range? Junior
high school, and college are our core demographics. We do have some elementary programs, but those are the big ones. Once you start getting multiple classes, a lot of times that's when the wheels fall off for a lot of us.
Sure. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you again. And parents, I know that this seems really, really hard right now, but your child will change the world.